You guys getting up this early too, man.
For sure.
For joining us. Really appreciate that.
Yeah.
Welcome to Wiretapped Truths. My name is Jesse Perez. I'm joined with our comedian, Jack Simmons, Mr. Wiretapped Truths, Leland. And today we have the assistant prop master for 5 seasons of The Wire, Mr. Bob Spore. A lot more. Thanks for coming on, Bob. We appreciate it. So I guess my first question would be like, how many clocks did Omar have to break before he took it to Prop Joe?
I sent you my resume. I've worked on so much that, and I had this happen just the other day. I was watching this show called House of Dynamite on Netflix. And it's it's a spy. Well, it's like an end of the world, apocalypse kind of thing where the missiles come in and they're trying to do whatever they can to stop the missile, and a lot of it's shot in L.A., but some of the exteriors are D.C. So I work on a lot of that. Like I started working on West Wing in D.C. when they would come in to do their exteriors for like sometimes they would do 1-2 seasons all in one clip, wow. And I have a pretty wild story with Martin Sheen on that. And so I watch these shows and at the end, I'll always look at the credits and go, hey, I wonder if I know anybody who worked on this, I'm just checking it out. And I get to the props department. It's like Christina Kilpie, which is one of my main prop masters, and Bob Spore. And I'm like, oh crap, I worked on this show. I totally forgot I worked on it. So I'm going to probably, and I sent you a bunch of notes that popped up in my head. Because I was watching all the clips and I was trying to bring up a lot of the memories and stuff like that. But like you asked me how many clocks, I'm not going to be able to tell you. I can't remember, even though I'm the one who's resetting that scene. I
was just joking because I just found it so funny that Omar intentionally broke a clock just to drop a cool ass line on Prop Joe.
Just to make a pun.
Just to make a pun.
And I love that scene too of them when he puts that clock on him, man. Prop Joe he's like, okay, and then he's like, oh, wait a minute, hold on.
He was so like level, and his emotional reactions that you couldn't tell half the times where he was at. He was just very on the line, no bullshit, all business. You know what I mean? And that also with his acting. You know what I mean? He was such a sweet man. He was so easy to work with. Also, I just want to correct you. So I was the props third for the first 2 seasons. Okay. And then I became the assistant prop master for season 3, 4, and 5.
Gotcha.
Okay.
Just got to keep it, because somebody else. They go watch this and go, Sports line again.
No, yeah. And of course, shout out to our executive producer, Dona Gibson.
Always.
She set up this interview. And she kept us on track. She's like, not my department, so we're learning that we have to get the right titles. But just to start us off, I know you got a story about a gunshot victim. Gun wound.
I would and this is where I kind of would help me excel and climb up the ladder in the prop department and also build my prop master cred, because I was only a prop third or assistant at that time. I hadn't done any really prop mastering. So Mike Sabo, the prop master, would need a prop master, a separate one for second unit stuff. And we would always have second unit stuff throughout the season, pickup shots, stuff we couldn't get, couldn't make our day or whatever. And I would have my own unit. I would have maybe a third with me as my assistant, and we'd go off as a separate unit together and do other things. We were doing a scene, I think it was a flea market. We were shooting on Monument Street. There's that block of clothing stores, hip hop clothing stores, and right behind it they would have a flea market, and that was our set. And I remember that I was resetting something or whatever, and this kid was coming up to me, had his hands on his abdomen, and walked up to me, and I could just see the blood going through his fingers. And I just looked at him and I said, gunshot. He just nodded his head. And then I just got on the walkie and yelled for the medic and for our AD department. And call 911.
Was there a second when you thought that, like, this was just part of the show? Like, did you
No,
immediately clock it as like, oh, this is a real gunshot? Like,
no, I knew it was real because anything that has any kind of blood or effects or anything like that was our department. So I knew
okay.
we didn't do it, and
Yeah.
the blood was way too real, and the look on his face. I mean, I could tell that he had been shot.
It's surprising how common that seems with like these gun related incidents, I was reading like the email you sent us, and it said that some people were like very knowledgeable of guns, but of course when that doesn't happen, then it because there's a million people working on set, so it almost seems like you have to have somebody who's like really like knowledgeable of how like guns work, because these are weapons you're dealing with. Otherwise you have like a Alec Baldwin situation happen.
Oh God, yeah. After that situation, man, it was nonstop with my friends. People who were not even in the business were on top of me, asking questions, criticizing, all kinds of stuff. Why are you using real guns? Why you shouldn't have real guns on set? Blah blah. And they didn't really understand. They were using real guns in the very beginning when they did westerns and stuff like that. Oh God, it's the thing you have to remember on The Wire is that it was 90% location. We had maybe 1-2 days an episode in the soundstage studio where we had that at that time. So, you're working 60, 65, almost 70 hours. I mean, the first season we were working 80 hours a week. And we were in Dolphin by the towers, all day. So you're in that environment all day and into the night. It's just like driving the Beltway every day. Eventually you're going to get into an accident, and eventually, there's going to be a gunshot or something you're going to hear throughout the day, and stray bullets, So we were always, nobody said anything about it because nobody wanted to freak each other out, but we were always in the environment where we could have got hit by a stray bullet, or it could have, it could be anything. Like, I'm sitting at the corner of the prop truck in season 1 by the towers and working on something, and 6 cars pull up on the corner, jump out of the cars and grab these guys off the corner, and they could have pulled guns and start firing. You never know.
Yeah, it seems like there's so much. I wonder if realism, some people think it makes it like better. I remember I was like reading the story about the French Connection, and how like the director William Friedkin had the camera in the car, and they were driving through like oncoming traffic to like make
Yeah.
it seem realistic.
Yeah. And Midnight Cowboy is a prime example. Dustin Hoffman and John Voight, crossing that street with that taxi. That wasn't staged. That taxi broke through the lockup on traffic, and that was a real taxi. And it could have hit them. Could have hit those guys. It didn't stop. In time. And of course, Dustin Hoffman, being the brilliant actor he is, he worked it right into the scene, and it's just magic. That's
Right.
So, yeah. I think that the thing about The Wire, that was a coming of age for me. That really broke me into this business. And my mentor, Mike Sabo, at the time, the prop master, beat pretty much three rules, 3 tenets that I had to burn into my brain as my prop person thing. Is that one, I had to anticipate or know before what the first AD wanted before he knew what he wanted. I had to know what the director wanted before he knew what he wanted. And then the third thing is not to make sure that our department doesn't look stupid or look Hollywood. And that meant that, directors and producers and writers would come up all kinds of ideas. And David Simon was really authentic and on to the point. But there was a few things here and there that he may have just kind of wrote up himself and maybe not checked it, but they were really good on their sourcing. But I sometimes had to have conversations with the director, and I had to be very delicate and fragile about it, because if they were trying to do something that was wrong and didn't look real, I had to come up with a solution, say, well, do you want to do it that way? And they would always go, well, yeah, of course I want to do it. That's my idea. I said, all right, well, I mean, that's not really how it is. And then you would start that conversation because you planted that bug in their ear, and they'd be like, oh, well, what do you mean? What do you mean? And then I would explain to them. And sometimes they'd be really open to it. And sometimes, I just had to go along with what was decided to do, and not necessarily in my opinion, the right thing.
Mm-hmm.
Dope Sick was another prime example of a show I worked on. I did all the props,
That was a crazy.
Great show.
If nobody's seen that show with Michael Keaton, that's a crazy show, man.
Oh, Michael Keaton,
fantastic!
God, what an amazing guy. Getting to work, and I was on assistant prop master. So I worked with him on set all the time, and I did all the drug paraphernalia for that props. Some of the people who, God bless Danny Strong, he's love that man. But it was a little bit of a friction in the beginning. He kept calling me a shadow director because I would always come up and I'd be going, "You gonna do it that way?" And he goes, "Spore, what now? What shadow directors? What is it now?" And I go, "Well, it's kind of, I'm a recovering drug addict, And he goes, "Yeah, I know. All right, how are we going to do it?" And then, that's how I would kind of, bridge that gap where it wouldn't look so Hollywood, and people would be like, "Oh, look at that. That's not even right,"
So you played a joke on I'm sorry, Jack. You played a joke on David Simon. On your early that involved kind of that. Can you tell us a little bit about
season
that?
one? Yeah, season one. David wrote in the script that Omar would bust these guys and rip them off for 4 G-packs, and I didn't know what a G-pack was. I knew what like a package was, because I had been involved in that lifestyle. I sold drugs on the streets of Baltimore as a drug addict in Baltimore City to be able to feed my habit. And when I understood what he wanted, it was 4,000 vials. And David wanted it to look real. So it's not like we can take a Ziploc bag and somehow build it up to look like there's 1,000 vials in that bag. And I need 4 of these bags. And I said, okay, well, I'll sit down at the table and I'll build these bags. And I got these big sheets of the vials, which those vials really, their origin is the perfume industry. That's where those vials come from originally. But the smaller ones were kind of brought into the industry through an alternate source. And so I got those sheets of vials, and it was like 4 or 5 of those sheets, and I would pour the powdered sugar on top, and then I would take a piece of cardboard and go back and forth until I could fill up all the vials. What took forever was putting a cap on each one of those vials and pulling them out, and then bundle them in 10s, 10 vials, and you wrap them up in a rubber band, and then you put them in a bag. And that took me 8 to 12 hours to do one day.
And that seems so tedious too. Like,
oh my God, I was just like, this is insane. Like, this is crazy. Why am I doing this? So I'm halfway or 3/4 of the way through. I'm like 8-10 hours into it, and I'm sitting at this table at the first warehouse for season 1, and David Simon walks over, and I'm paraphrasing on the conversation, but what I remember is he just was profusely congratulating us and telling us that we were doing such an amazing job on the authenticity of all our props and the drugs and everything like that. He's like, "You guys have really nailed it. This is not going to look like Hollywood. This is fantastic. I mean, I can't believe it." And I had like 2 G-packs already done, and he was picking them up and looking at them. "This is fantastic. I mean, I really appreciate you." And I looked up, and this was my moment where I knew, like, okay, maybe I could play a joke on him. And I'd only worked with him since the corner, so he really didn't know me that well. He knew who I was, but really, I was just kind of one of the other people that were working around him. And I said to him, I said, "Yeah, I've been there like 10, 12 hours, David. And, it's just, I'm a recovering drug addict, and this has been really difficult for me." And he looked at me, and his eyes popped out of his head. His jaw hit the ground, and he completely flipped out right there on me. And he was like, "Where is Mike Sabo? I'm going to kill Mike Sabo. Where the F is Mike? I'm going to kill that guy. How can he do this to you?" And I looked at him, I said, "I'm just kidding, Dave. I'm kidding." And he's like, "Oh, man, you got me. That was a good one. You really got me." And from that point on, him and I had a really good, rapport. And so, yeah, that's always a fun story. I love telling that story.
It definitely seems like he has a real big sense of humor. Like when I watch him in interviews and stuff.
He does.
It definitely seems like that. Like,
yeah, he does. It's a dry and it's almost kind of a mischievous type of humor.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, no, he's a smart man. God,
yeah, so, and a lot of people don't know he was in season 2. A lot of fans, I don't know if they missed that nugget, but when they arrest Frank Zabaka, he's the one that's asking him about the union. A lot of people. They don't know that little nugget. But even that little scene right there, he kind of looks. If you know that that's David Simon, and you're looking at him, it's like, man, what are you doing right here? Kind of thing. Like,
and I couldn't remember that exactly what happened in that scene, but I mean, I played a CEO in the prison when we were in the going to see I think Avon or no, it was one of Avon's men. God, I can't remember his name.
Weebay?
Was it
Weebay?
Yeah, Weebay. Yeah, and what would happen sometimes is we would not have enough background. We would have enough BG, or sometimes the actors weren't the right actors for that part. Probably was what happened. And David Simon said, "Let me do it. I'll do it." You know, I'm guessing. But yeah, I've got a photograph somewhere with me in a CEO uniform. I think it got dropped though. I don't think I made the episode.
So we heard, like, from what I've gathered, Ed Burns is more. This is from Maestro and Julito, and I think Chris Clanton even alluded to it, that Ed Burns was the more like the father figure to them, and David Simon was more serious. Would that be accurate description?
Yes. Ed Burns is, wow, talk about an amazing life. From what I understand, and you know, I could be off a little bit, but Ed Burns started out. I mean, his life started out. He was in Vietnam, and he was a point man because he carried a shotgun. And a shotgun's a very intimate weapon. You have to be close, so he would always be on point. So, I mean, that's just, I don't know how he made it through that, you know, because very few men make it through that position through that tour, and I don't know how many tours he did. And then he came out of Vietnam and he joined the force, the police force, and he was there for 20 years, and you know, becoming a homicide detective, and also I think a narcotics detective, because you know, the Deacon, played by Melvin on our show, he put him in jail for distributing heroin in Baltimore City. He was one of the biggest heroin dealers in Baltimore City. And then after that, he became a Baltimore City public school teacher. You know, it's just
like 5 lives.
Pretty much.
I don't know if you know this, Bob. Chris Clanton, who played Savino, was his student.
Yes.
Ed Burns' student. Okay.
Yes, I do. Yeah. I remember that. Ed Burns was the quiet, kind of a little bit of a, you know, definitely a father figure. David Simon was more of the opposite, more external, and very firm, you know, in what he wanted done. Whereas Ed Burns would be, you know, okay, well, we'll do this, you know, and he was so easy to talk to. I mean, I probably told him my life story at one point in time because we were having these discussions about stuff on set, stuff like that.
I know with such a tedious job, you hate nitpicks, but Leland did find a little nitpick on the do you wanna say what it was, Leland, with the Prop Joe and Nikki Sabaka, the money?
When I think talking about when Savino and Prop Joe, not Savino, Sergey and Prop Joe meet each other, when he gives him the money, that does not look like $3,500. And I don't know if it's like supposed to be. All right, I counted out when Nikki gives.
Was it 3 stacks?
When in the scene, it look Prop Joe counts something, but it's not $3,500. Like, he counts a few dollars and he gives it to Nikki. But when Nikki gives it to Ziggy, it's a bigger stack. Like, looks like it could be $3,500.
Continuity is off there. Yeah.
Yeah. You know,
money's always tricky. Money's always tricky because
for sure.
People who work in the banking industry could tell you that's not $1 million. You know what I mean? You see it. And I think besides, we always try to get the right amount because we have it in bundles, and if it's in hundreds, you know, a bundle is like $1,000. So if you had 4 bundles, you got $3,000 to $4,000. What we really care about is what it looks like, you know, when you see it, because when you do an insert or anything like that, you have to be really, like, I'll put a real $100 bill on top of a stack of fake hundreds, or I'll throw real $1 bills or real 20s, and you know, in a wad, it gets pulled out and somebody's peeling off money, just because I don't want to see that fake Hollywood money. And that's always been my requirement, you know, with that stuff. But
that attention to detail is I don't know, just talking to Miss Donna about, you know, she was telling us about when it was time to dress people and stuff, how if they bought a shirt, they would press it, wrinkle it so it doesn't look so new. Like it's just little stuff like that where I wonder, because the cast of The Wire is the only people that I've talked to in terms of entertainment. I just wonder, like, if other shows really take it that serious. It makes me want to look when I start watching other shows, like, yeah, that shirt looks like it's brand new, or kind of thing. If people pay that kind of attention to detail to just the smaller things like that.
Again, that goes right back to my mentor, Mike Sabo. Aging and distressing, is so important in our props. I mean, a prime example is a show I'm working on right now where we had a scene in a tire yard. These guys are all wearing hard hats, and I pull these brand new hard hats out of a bag, and I'm like, all right, I've only got a few minutes to distress this thing, so you'll see me through the yard throwing this hard hat through the ground and rubbing it on tires and rubbing it on the ground, and rubbing it on, like I could be like at the prop truck, back in the day, and I'm trying to distress something and I'm rubbing it against the truck, piece of metal, anything I can get to just distress it, knock it down. And we have sprays and we have stuff that we can put on the props to make them look older and age them down. But that's really important in my book. Yeah, I can tell right away when something's not, correct, and my kids won't even go to the movies with me half the time because of the continuity issues and all that stuff. They've even gotten to the point where they're saying stuff when we're watching something on TV. They're like, "Look at that! Did you see the continuity? He went from that room with a cigarette in this room, and he doesn't have the cigarette." And I'm like, "Oh God, I've created monsters."
Bob, have you ever seen the YouTube channel Everything That's Wrong With? It's a channel that breaks down. Oh, you seen those? Okay, all right. Jesse, y'all know if y'all seen that channel?
Yeah, movie mistakes. Yeah.
Phenomenal. And
love it.
I love it. It's like, I don't like The Dark Knight any less because of all of these faults, but it's the stuff that it points out, man, it's unbelievable. It's
continuity with Anthony Soprano, cigars. You should watch it for that, because there's a scene where he's in a funeral home at a viewing, and he has a cigar, and it's a 2-room viewing with a divider in the middle. And he's literally walking from one room to the next with a cigar in his hand. In the next room, he doesn't have a cigar. It's a continuous shot. And it's just like, oh my God.
Yeah. I noticed that stuff too.
They let that stuff get, because sometimes on the fly, you can't do anything, and you're stuck. And I understand that. That's happened to me. But I'm such an aggressive and sometimes to a fault prop person on set, that I overcompensate sometimes. Cigarettes, drinks, food scenes are like the worst, man. I can't stand food scenes. I mean, every time we have one, we had a 4-hour food scene the other day on the show. And fortunately, and we didn't have any reset plates. So I had to improvise the plates and the food and everything like that. And we had like a 2-year-old kid in the seat. Like a hummingbird on crack, and it was just insane. And that's something that is important to me, anyways, is continuity.
So you had a 2-year-old on set. That was the child was part of the scene, or
yep.
Wow. As somebody with a child that's about to turn 2 in like 2 months, I can only imagine.
Okay. Yeah, don't put them in films. Whatever you do, don't put them in films.
It's interesting because it's like I noticed the same before. I definitely want to ask about that, of how you got the 2-year-old to eat. But it's like the other day I was watching a movie called Friendship, which is actually a good movie. But one of the scenes, he knocks into a glass door and he drops the beer bottle, and he walks in the room, and then the next scene he's holding the beer bottle in the room, and I'm like, wait a second, you just dropped it. And it's like, yeah, it's better to be like overly attentive to detail so you don't miss those small things, because there's so much going on. It's easy for that stuff to slip through the cracks, I imagine.
If it's a continuous shot in a scene, then it becomes an issue. If it's from scene to scene and there could be a time cut, even if it's a minute, like somebody walks starting at the bottom of the stairs with something in their left hand, and then they come up the top of the stairs with it in their right hand. If we're not seeing them going from bottom to top, and that there's always that, well, he just put it in his other hand.
It's an estimated time lapse that we don't see.
There's a scene in The Wire that bothered the heck out of me, that because it's such a great scene that I ignored the continuity now. But it was the and it's probably my favorite scene. It's probably because I've seen it so many times. I forgot to mention it yesterday, Leland, when McNulty's talking to Brianna and about D'Angelo hanging himself, and the tea bag like disappears, then reappears, and then it's like here, and I'm like, oh.
What season was that?
Season 3.
Yeah.
Oh God, that was probably my fault.
No.
What happened is probably
I'm not blaming no one. I'm just
probably fell in the cup. That's probably what happened, and so I didn't have a second, because we always have doubles. We always have a double of the same thing to throw in there right away, so they don't have to wait. They can continuously roll. I think.
No, I didn't say that to put you on the spot. It's just funny because I'm like, but that scene specifically, I chose to ignore continuity errors because like I just love that scene so much. I'm like, I can't pay attention to that tea bag.
You know what, Jesse, that scene particularly, and we've talked about that scene particularly because Brianna, like, she actually sheds a tear. Like, it's showing like her acting prowess in the show. Just talking about that scene in season 3, we were talking about yesterday, Jesse, when Avon and Stringer fight. When Stringer tells him that, hey, I actually killed your nephew, and Stringer's going off, you can hear his accent come out a little bit.
Yep.
And you see a little bit of spit come out his mouth.
Yeah.
Was it because that scene was so intense that it was like, let's just leave that little slip in there? Because it's probably the most intense scene other than Kima getting shot. Those are probably the 2 most intense scenes in The Wire. Did you all leave that in because it was shot so beautifully? It's like, you know what?
Yeah.
I don't know if we should reshoot this. The emotion was so raw. Like, it was like,
a prime example too of that. The performance is so good that you'll compensate. You'll give that part away. The continuity, whatever. The prime example of that is when Omar robs the poker game. All right. That was probably one of the hardest prop scenes I've done in a long time.
And why? Can you explain it?
Yeah, you've got cards, you've got chips, poker chips, you've got money, you've got snacks, you've got drinks, you've got smoking, and then you have somebody coming into the room with a weapon. And I believe he fired the weapon, or maybe he didn't. I can't remember exactly. So when he comes in there, everything goes up in the air. Everything gets messed up. Everybody's just, throwing stuff around and everything like that. So, and we're working off of Polaroid pictures. We had Polaroid cameras at that time. And so I'm taking all these Polaroid pictures of the start mark, beginning of the scene. And then I have Polaroids at the end of the scene, sometimes in the middle when they break it up in parts, because you had to break up that scene in parts. You couldn't do that continuously. Like It's not a oneer, not even close to a oneer. And so trying to reset the drinks, the cigars, the cigarettes, because they're also throwing money in the pot, which I never really understood. Why would you be throwing money? You already got chips. Why we even got chips? Why don't you just have money? But,
Right.
And then you got cards, and when you see a shot of the table, you'll see probably maybe 1 or 2 shots of that table. And then everything is above the table, or the table is obscured, or it's out of focus because it's just too much. And that's where sometimes you just kind of have to go, all right, we're just going to wing this and we're going to do the best we can. And if we're off on something here, something there, the old saying is on set, if people are looking for this, we've already lost them. If they're worried about where the cards are or what the ashes on the cigarette or the cigar, we've already lost them. You know what I mean?
What's crazy about that, Bob, just yesterday, Jesse and I, we did like an impromptu, what we call Wiretapped Truths random episode. We cover random facts from the show, and we did a top 10 most legendary scenes of the whole show. Not necessarily our favorites, but just what we thought fan favorites might be in terms of legendary scenes. That was one of them. Yeah, so the fact that scene took so much, and we were making a list, we were like, okay, what are some of the most legendary scenes, the after effect of them? That was definitely one of them. I love that scene. Like that is a favorite scene. The fact that you said it took 4 to 5 hours to put that together. You're looking at it on camera, you're like,
oh, you're talking about the poker game?
Yeah. When Omar robs it.
That was like 8 hours. That was probably 8 hours.
Goodness.
Yeah, that might have taken the whole day. I can't remember, but it was a difficult scene.
And to answer your question, so the buy-in could be a certain amount of money, and then you could reach all in, and then they could go in for more money and be like, "I'll even raise you." Pocket.
Yeah.
That's why the money will mix in with the chips.
Yeah. That's just me questioning, what the purpose of this is that, and I just got to go with it, just all right, sure, we'll do that, because at that point I got so much to deal with. I'm not going to try to fight something that I think is off. When in real life, definitely could be throwing more money in cash and on top of the chips to sweeten the pot.
And 30 minutes in, we just want to say, please like, share, subscribe, comment, Wiretapped Truths. We appreciate all the love, all the support from our fans. Thank you so much. All right, Jesse, keep going.
We want to get to all these topics. So you mentioned that you were in recovery. Congratulations.
29 years in January.
Wow.
Congratulations. Wow.
That's like a whole new life.
Saved my life. I wouldn't be here.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be here.
So I'm 4 years in AA, and
dude, thanks for keeping me sober today. I appreciate it.
So I go to the meetings and stuff, and I told the cast when they talked about the NA scene, I'm like, this is the best depiction of a meeting I've seen on television to this day. Wailing speech, the preamble, the giving out the coins, everything was like, I was like, they're on point with this, Mm-hmm. I mean, I go to AA, but I mean, I haven't been to an NA meeting, but I know that they're pretty much similar formatted. Do you did they go to you for any help with the scenes?
My best recollection is they probably did in a broad kind of view, but when something was off in the script, and when I read it, I would bring it up and help. I would go to David. At that point, I think I was on set, so I was working with David on a regular basis. So I would go to David and I would say, we do these readings in the meetings, and they're in certain parts of the meetings on a regular basis. This is how we do it. Now, every area has different ways of doing this and doing that, adding, taking away some of the readings. But this is where this reading is. It's at the end of the meeting, and you have it in the beginning of the meeting. I think it was the promises. I'm pretty sure it was the promises, because we used to read the promises. Now, I'm AA too, but I've been AA, NA, and now back to AA. But usually the promises is the last thing we read, and he had it in the beginning, which is not crazy or unheard of, but I felt that it would have been better to do it at the end.
Yeah.
And when I talked to him about it, he said, "Oh, well, he turned around and went to the script supervisor, and also one of the writers, or talked to Eddie, said, change that in the dialogue."
Which season, Jesse, do you remember which seasons had those AA meetings? I know season 1 and season 5. Were there any? I'm trying to think when you became your full time.
Yeah, Bubble started
kind of when.
Yeah, I think Bubble started going either in season 3 or season 4, maybe season 4.
Yeah. Well, after Sherrod died, that was sort of when he hit rock bottom, which I'm sure that everybody that's in AA and, can relate to. Everyone has a bottom, right?
Yeah. So the actor who played his buddy,
Waylon.
Yeah, not Waylon.
Sherrod.
But Waylon, Sherrod. But Waylon was great. Steve, God bless him, man. I loved working with him. He was such a sweet man, and he also kind of would back me up on the recovery thing.
Yeah, because he was a recovering addict, right?
Yes, correct, sir.
Yeah.
So the actor who played Sherrod was in Kids. He was the main actor in Kids.
Oh, no, Johnny. Leo Fitzpatrick.
No, Johnny. Okay, Johnny. I'm sorry. Sherrod, two different people altogether. Johnny was in Kids,
mm-hmm.
and I had seen Kids just recently before he came on the show. Yeah.
We just talked about that last episode, that movie.
Yeah, he was awesome, man. And I love that movie, Kids. I thought that movie
he was a monster in that movie, too.
He was a monster. Yes, he was. But it was so real. That movie was like, that was like The Wire, but a lot more primitive, a lot more tore down. You know what I mean?
Like a documentary, honestly. Yeah,
just like a reality show almost. So when Bubble started going to recovery. I think it was either 3 or 4. I'm not positive what season it was. We had to have a lot of, talking about how these meetings were going to be set up and what we were going to have, where the coffee was going to be, whether we have coffee and donuts, they wanted sandwiches,
No.
Yeah, I know. Dude,
at least not here in Long Island.
No, I went to meetings in Rhode Island one time. I was working in Rhode Island, Providence, working on a show up there. So whenever I traveled, I always would find my area and my peeps for recovery, because I'm living out of a hotel. And Atlanta, I'd go to the Triangle Club, and then in Providence, I would go to these meetings, and it was like the halls of AA. Dude, these meetings were 90 minutes long. They had an intermission, they had a raffle, they had sandwiches. I was just like, wow, this is insane.
That's crazy. Yeah,
I know. So I mean, that was another thing too, is that the way our decorator and our production designer, when we came to those kind of things, they would come and talk to me about stuff. They would ask me questions.
That's cool. Very cool.
Yeah, and it's like the like you said, the designing the props and the sets are all about like realism. And I always felt one thing that was great about those AA scenes is it really felt like realistic. Even just the way those rooms were designed, it really felt like a lived-in world. Like it wasn't completely clean, but it just felt like like this is the place to have that on there. I think and that's kind of what made the show great, was all that constant sense of like realism that it had there.
Yeah.
Well, and then what I loved about it too was that when we touched on that scene, I was talking about how just their reactions were 100% what you would see in the room. Johnny's that guy who's forced to be there. That's like, I'm over. You see that person, but you'll also see the person like Bubbles, where that applause for the one-day coin gets him a little encouraged, and he likes it. He likes the meetings. His disease is still with him, but you can tell. You can tell that he likes the meetings.
Bubbles is that character who's all in, whatever he's doing. If he's on the street selling goods from his cart, he's all in, man. He's going to work it as hard as he can, and that's the same way he was trying to be in recovery. It was a struggle, and like we've all been there. I don't know if are the jets interfering with
No, you're good.
Okay, I'm right underneath a flight path in BWI, and I figured that there wouldn't be any traffic today because nobody's working at the airport.
You're good. We don't hear nothing.
It adds to the authenticity too. Like, we appreciate it.
It's the realism,
I'll be a little remiss not to ask. Michael had his demons. We talk about Michael on the interviews. Everybody holds him in high regard. Did you guys share any 12-step bondage or?
Yes, we did. I took Michael to meetings.
Wow.
During production, during the season.
Wow.
Right away we connected. I mean, he could tell. Yeah, he could tell right away with me. I was pretty open about it too. I didn't know he was when I first met him. But we started, building that rapport. And my favorite moment of that experience being on the wire was taking Michael to meetings, was spending time, in the car. Because he was staying at a hotel, so he didn't have a car to get around. So I'd go pick him up, and I would take him to these meetings, and we would talk. We would always talk on set, whenever he was struggling. And not only was he, he was an amazing man, and an actor. My God, the things that he was able to do, where he was able to pull things from himself to do these characters.
And Bob, we see you getting choked up. It's okay. You are not the first. When this comes up in our interviews, it seems like everyone, when they bring him up, there is an emotional heart tug talking about Michael Williams. Not just him as an actor, but him as a person. So don't feel like it's, my gosh, maybe I'm breaking down. But it is.
I told it back.
It's when I see that, when I see it from all the people that we interview, and it seems to be just that same. I don't even want to call it respect, but just admiration for this individual, not just as an actor, but as a person. It just makes me think like, man, his purpose here was, what was he doing here? It was like he was an angel here on earth. And for everybody to look at him in this same light is I don't know. I'm getting teary-eyed thinking, but like watching you get upset, and I didn't even know him. It just seems like everybody held him in such high regard that it was, and on top of him fighting these demons he was fighting and giving these phenomenal performances, but also still being willing to help people too. I don't know. It seems like he was such a gentle giving spirit. Like I don't know. It's so interesting to see everybody hold him so close. And I don't know if you got a chance to check out our interview with Michael Kelvin Darnall, who was Brandon on the show. He was his boyfriend. He mentioned when we closed the interview, he said, you know what? I just hope that Michael Williams is looking at us from heaven and he understands how we viewed him while he was here and after he was here. Like it was a really, that's how he closed our interview. It was a really emotional moment from him. So it's just to see it in everybody that we've interviewed, it blows my mind to just see like this person was so much more than just an actor, or I don't even want to say just an addict. Like he was an angel here on earth, it sounds like, from everybody that we've interviewed and that talked about him. So
I mean, I can't even count how many people I've lost, over the years to the addiction, and I've never been the type to look at that as a failure. Look at that as like they gave up. Look at that as like, like they didn't care about themselves. Addiction is such it's very mechanical and it's very insidious. It never rests, never sleeps. And addiction has two objectives. It wants you to live in the past and the future, never in the present. Like right now, I'm connected with you guys. There's another alcoholic here. So I'm in my most vulnerable place, and I'm also connected to my higher power. After this interview, who knows what's going to happen. But I'm not thinking about that. The second thing addiction wants to do is it wants to isolate, disconnect, and separate you from your loved ones, connection to another person in general, or just connection to your higher power. And if it can do that, then it can keep you in that past future hamster wheel of death, spiraling down. And that's what it wants to do. And I know that, and I've been in those places where, suicide was an option. Kind of like at the end of it, I went to NA for 10 years, and I had this moment in between it, going back to AA, where I was, that the supreme sacrifice was an option for me. I thought, that's where my disease took me, and I wasn't using it because addiction has, there's other. I had behavior issues, and my addiction figured out, oh, okay, well, this is what I can use to kill him. He won't use drugs or alcohol because his pride and ego is so strong. He doesn't want to lose all that clean time and look like a failure. But I'll use this on him. I'll get him to take himself out with this behavior that he has. And I came really close. And the day that I felt like that, I was on the roof of this building where they were doing surveillance scenes for The Wire, and thank God for Miss Debbie, thank God for Miss Sandy, and Janice and hair and makeup, and those guys held my hand, because looking over the side of that building, it was about 3 stories, 4 stories. I could easily just jumped right off there.
Yeah.
And thank God for them, because they could see it. Those women were like. They were like my surrogate mom, they were like, they were the mamas of the crew, and they would look out for everybody, and they could see it in my face. They could see what I was going through, because I had just had a situation come down that was just destroying me, and they held my hand through that day, and thank God for them, because jumping off that building was an option. I was like, I could do this, and I wouldn't think about it. Traumatic effect to the people in the crew. God forbid if I'd done that, people would have been devastated and would be traumatized by that, and that's how my job sometimes, and especially in that arena, The Wire, in that environment, because when I worked on the corner, I was 2.5 years clean, and prior to that, I had been on the streets in Mount Vernon where I was living, but I had an apartment in Hamden. I would come down to Mount Vernon to use and cop, and that's where I was ending up squatting in these crack houses, shooting galleries, and it got to the point with this one crew that I was squatting with, that I was, selling for them, that I was playing one dealer against another dealer's package, so I could kind of like keep working these guys and not have to pay them. And they figured it out. And the guy Dre in that crew, who's the enforcer, this guy's job is to basically take care of people, they're a problem. And I was next on his list.
Damn.
He and I had developed a really good kind of reputation of friendship, because all the guys would tease him because he was this black guy that loved Van Halen. Him and I would sit in these crack houses and we would talk about Van Halen, and he just loved me. But he knew that he would have to do something, because Kenny, the leader of the crew, who was not really what you would call a drug pin type, he was more like a rock star. He liked the clothes, he liked the guns, he liked the girls, he liked the cars. And I gave him my car, to trade for drugs, so he'd have a car to drive around, town to do all his business. But Kenny was the type of drug dealer where he would get my car washed, get my brakes changed, get my changed. I mean, he was a loving guy. So I get out of that, and I'm working on the corner. And one day I'm sitting there, and we're in East Baltimore, and Kenny rides up on his bike on set. And I was just like, oh my God. And he sees me, and he's got that smile, with the gold teeth and everything. And he looks at me, and he comes over, and we start talking a little bit, about where I am and whatnot. And I could see on his face, because the night where they were going to take me out, the night they were all going to gang up, he got a hold of me. He gave me my car keys, and he said, get out of here. If you don't leave now, you're not leaving.
Damn.
And that was January 13th of 1997, that night. And then the 14th is my sobriety date. And I could see on his face when he saw me on set, he was like he felt like he'd done something right in his life, and that was saving my life.
Wow.
And he got,
that's deep.
I got him a walk-on part in the scene. Like he was on camera, and he got to ride his bike off into the sunset up the street on camera. And I've never seen him ever again.
Damn. Wow.
That's what you need is part of sobriety and healing and healing from anything, right? Is you need those people, you need friends, you need like that support system that
absolutely,
to help you get past that. And thank God you guys had that and seemed bring it back to referencing what Jesse said, seemed like you and Michael had that sort of support system where it's like, when you're sober, right, you guys almost have like that own unspoken bond, because you guys face similar demons, right? You have the same struggle. So it's like that probably caused your relationship to go stronger as a result.
Yeah. The guys I work with, I take through the process. The first thing I tell them, I said, look, I'm not always available. I don't have a real job. My schedules are erratic. You may not be able to get a hold of me. You may not be able to talk to me. You have to have a network. A network is a net. It saves you for when you're going to fall. They're there for you. Get some men, get some phone numbers, get this group of guys that you can, at any time you could go to, and also be there for them, because you got to give back. You can't keep taking and taking. Of course, you can come into the program and take as much as you need to get yourself back on your feet, but eventually you're going to have to give back, and you're going to be part of somebody else's network.
Well, Bubbles says that in his 1 year sobriety speech too. He says, I tried to call Waylon. He was out with his biker buddies. Did you help write that speech? That would have been
no, but I may have said something somewhere along the line in some conversations, because Ed and David asked me a lot of questions, and we would talk about my recovery, and I tell them stories, so it's very easy, because they would write stuff, and sometimes it would seem like, oh, I heard that on set the other day, and now it's scene, it's part of the dialogue or something, maybe, I don't know, but and they had David's assistant Laura, and some of the people who did all resourcing, because there's a whole department that does clearances, for products and all that stuff. Product placement's a whole nother thing I could talk about, props, but they would have people who would resource stuff to make sure it was authentic and accurate. You know what I mean? And David and Ed were very, very, they were strict about that. They didn't want to look Hollywood. You know what I mean? And that comes from Jim Finnery from Homicide. That was beaten into them from him, because he was hardcore. He was probably, and I only got to work with him one time when because I wasn't part of the Homicide crew. I did the last after they canceled the show, I did the 2-hour special movie where all the actors who died came back from, as ghosts or whatever. And that was the only time I got to work with Jim Finnery. And man, what an intense individual. I mean, him, Nina, Boris from House of Cards, Nina Noble to this day, God bless that woman. I mean, she took care of us. She was the type of UPM executive producer that, she would come on set and it would be like 3:00 in the morning on Saturday morning. We'd already worked 80 hours. The crew is completely destroyed. The actors are completely destroyed. And then, and a director or a writer or somebody who was coming into the show to work with us, not a permanent person, would have some idea like, we're going to do this car chase and then we're going to have a shootout over here and then this is going to happen and this is going to happen. And literally in front of the crew, Nina would step up and go, "No, you're not." And the look on the director's face or some of the producers' faces would be like, what do you mean? We need this. She goes, "No, you're not doing that. You got 10 minutes. I'm pulling the plug. You're not doing that to my crew. You're not doing this to my actor. You got to get your shit together and get this done." In front of everybody, not off to the side in a little whisper conversation, in front of the crew. And she would do that on a regular basis. And Boris was the same way with House of Cards. God rest his soul. I love that man. He protected us because people would come in and they just didn't know the environment. They're only there for 8 days, 9 days, 12 days on set and maybe a week of prep, so they're not there as much as we have been there. So they don't really have, the only director I can remember on House of Cards was Alec Sokolov, who was the DP for Game of Thrones and the director for Game of Thrones. He came on House of Cards and God love that man. We'd be shooting a scene and 1 or 2 takes. He goes, "We got that. Everybody think we got that?" And we all go, "Yeah. Okay, cool. We're moving on." We worked maybe 8 or 9 hours that episode, a day. We didn't barely make any money, but God bless him because he would take all that stress off from the last episode, the last directors, who would sometimes run us, 12, 14 hours. And the same with.
And you're talking about Boris MacGyver, right? Okay, got you. That's Lieutenant Marimo, if y'all don't know.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. And you've heard of
that.
directors working like, doing like 100 takes of something, and that's probably just, it wears down the crew who already,
inexperienced directors tend to do what I call cover your ass shooting, which means that they will take after take after take after take. I understand the process of what the directors are trying to do. I know that they're trying to get what they need to get. And if they don't quite get there, they keep going until they do. And sometimes they want to push. I mean, Kubrick is the same way, with that. But
David Fincher did that.
Yeah. But he, Kubrick did that because he knew that he would get a result from overshooting, doing, 40 takes of one setup. Because he needed, Shelley Duvall to lose her mind on camera. Like really lose her mind, and he got it in The Shining.
Yeah,
and and some directors are like that. But again, that's why you have producers. That's why you have UPMs who will come in and police that, because a DP and a director is like 2 kids in a candy store. They'll just keep going. They don't have to wrap. Once we're done, they walk into they get into a van, they go back to their room. We're still there for an hour and a half. Cleaning up and packing up and loading our trucks.
And sure, you'll be working till the AM. And I wonder if it's like, for some people, if it's like an obsessive compulsive thing, like there's something that they just feel that they have to get right or not. But
yeah. I've worked on Dope Sick. I worked with a director who was like that. I mean, these are human beings. The director has a lot of stress and responsibility. They are the leader of the crew. They have the vision. We have to create that vision, provide it for them. The first AD is in charge of all safety on set. They're number one person in charge of the set, but the director is our leader. We have to follow him and do what he wants to do. And sometimes you have to deal with people's, character defects, and it could be, anxiety, it could be panic attacks, it can be drug and alcohol addiction, whatever, your deal. They're human beings, just like all of us, and they have faults. And sometimes under that stress and pressure, of delivering what they think should be delivered, they break down, or they go through a process of trying to just survive through that moment. And when you're an extra director all day long, you start to see these things, and you start to work out a process with them to make everything happen. And then you have to change it for the next episode, for the next director. And sometimes you get directors who are funny, like Alex Okoroff. I love that guy. He brought my son on set to shadow him for 2 episodes. One episode, one season, and then when he came back for the next season. And that all happened because we were talking one day, and I told him my son was a big Russian director, Russian films, Korean and Japanese films, from the 40s, 50s, and 60s.
Wow.
And talking to him about this, and Alec was like, "What? Really? I must meet your son. Bring your son to set. I must meet him." And Noah shows up on set, and I think he was like 15 or 16 at this point, and he's got a stack of books because he's a big book guy. He's a extremely intelligent kid. He's got a lot of challenges, but he's extremely intelligent. And he brought these books on set, and Alec was like, your son, he reads books. He brings books. I can't even get my son off the video games. and he they just struck up a really good rapport. And that's just the type of person you get sometimes. And I remember one English director we had on The Wire, and we had our DP was Uda, and British director, German DP, and she was very kind of demanding of what she wanted. And like I said, the director, DP are like 2 kids in a candy store. Sometimes they just get out of hand. But sometimes you get a director who's the opposite. And like, I remember her saying, "Oh, I need one more. Please, we need one more take. And the director, I can't remember his name, he goes, "Right, yes, moving on." Completely cut it out. And God bless Uda. I mean, Uda was, she was such an amazing DP. She had a completely different process, and we weren't used to that. She brought a German dolly in, which the grips were like calling the Panzer. And I'll never forget her, because I was in the first season, we had this warehouse that was on Route 40 near the Gold Club, and I had to rig up the smoke machine for atmosphere, and it was a hazer that you had to turn on and off with a fan in front of it. And we rigged up this system where I could plug all the plugs into a remote control, so I could be across the room and just hit remote control and run it for like a minute or 2 to get the haze in the room that you wanted, and then do my propping, because that's really how our prop department was. It was 3 guys, one guy, the boss, was prepping. I'm on set. I got my guy Dawson, who's my third. Dawson Nolly's also an amazing individual that worked with us, and that was it. We did the props, we did the guns, we did some blood work, we did some special effects with that. And I'll never forget, she would say, "Bobby, I need more smoke, Bobby, more smoke." I have grips to this day who I've worked with on that show tease me about that every once in a while. "You remember Uda?" And I go, "Yeah, I remember."
And Bob, we're coming up on an hour. I just have one more question. I don't know if the guys have a few more questions.
Well,
I got one more just in relation to what we were just talking about. What was the difference between working on The Wire and working on House of Cards? Like
night and day.
Night and day. Miss Donna said the same thing.
Yeah, night and day. Now, I will say that there was a family element in House of Cards. The crew, the core crew, the on-set crew, camera department, costumes, makeup, were a mix of locals, hardcore locals from The Wire and from other jobs in the area, and then out-of-towners. And sometimes the out-of-towners would be people that we could connect with. And then sometimes there's just LA, and that's just, or New York, and that's just how it is. And you just have to kind of walk through that. But the core actors that I have the highest respect for. Now, granted, I came into that show as a big Kevin Spacey fan, huge. And, and I had a little bit of a reckoning with that, especially season 5 and 6, when I worked with him directly every day.
Okay.
And, and I won't go into anything about that with him.
We wouldn't ask you to.
Yeah. I never had any issues. but you never knew what Kevin Spacey you were going to get that morning. But Michael Kelly, who I keep a regular contact with to this day, and Robin Wright were the sweetest people. I mean, Robin Wright was like mama on the set. I mean, she took care of everybody, and she saw me go through some really tough times with Kevin, where he would just be, rude. He would be difficult because he was, had a rough night or something. I don't know, whatever, but he would give me a hard time, and she would see it, and she would cut him down in front of everybody in the crew.
Wow.
Hey, Mr. Underpants, stop with that shit. Leave Bob alone. And I would be like, oh my God, thank you. And Michael Kelly, who I worked with on All Square, a TV movie that a movie he did that we shot on weekends, our days off with him, and also a movie I did with Robin during that period. I think it was called Into the Night. I'm not sure, that she directed. It's the same thing. God bless those people. They were the kindest people ever. So there was a bit of a family element, completely different from The Wire because of the show.
Mm-hmm.
House of Cards was a money pit. God, there's an endless supply of money.
Yeah.
Where in a corner we had to make do with what we had, and we had to cut corners. And HBO at that time, I don't know how it is, but HBO would spend $500 to save a nickel sometimes. It was just ridiculous. But House of Cards was just like, what's that going to cost? Yeah, I don't know, get 10 of them. I mean, it was completely different, but it was an amazing experience too. On top of that,
did you like having a lower budget more? Like, did you find it was easier because it was more in like your wheelhouse, whereas like Netflix is like, there's so much stuff to do, you don't even know what to do?
Yeah, lower budget sometimes. Yes, it's a hindrance, but sometimes when you're in that situation, you have to be more creative. So that's the plus side of it. On a show like House of Cards, you can get whatever you need, so it's the right thing, no matter what. And it's the best. $20,000 watches on Kevin Spacey. I got 10 of these things or 8 of these things. There's $100,000, right there in my hands. Mm-hmm. If I drop one of them, it's $15,000 to fix the crystal. Those kind of things that you have to keep in mind. You know what I mean? Whereas I'm repairing watches left and right on The Wire.
Yeah, and I've had kind of the same reckoning with Kevin Spacey, because I used to be a huge fan of his also in the show, and then hearing everyone talk about what a major asshole he was, it's it's hard to hear, but it's great. Robin Wright seemed like such a nice person, and what a great actress she was, because she also played like a really bad person on that show. So it must have been just
somebody who could just turn off who they really are and turn on the character was scary. And
Jesse, I know you've seen bits and pieces of House of Cards. That woman in that show, bro, I'm talking about cut throw in the show.
She would be planking in a $10,000 dress, and I could just sit there and watch the costumer, the main LA costumer, sitting there going, she's planking in that dress. I mean, and that woman will hold a plank for like 2-3 minutes. You know what I mean? It's insane. But the thing about that show, and addressing with Kevin Spacey, is that once they get rolling in that scene, once they got their lines down, because they would come in pretty much, they'd have to pretty much learn there wasn't really any rehearsals at night most of the times I could gander. But when you start seeing those two click, and Michael Kelly too, you see the magic. You watch these characters come alive in front of you. And, for all their faults as human beings, when you see that magic and you see that come out in that middle of the scene, you're present for that. That's the part of the job that's why I'm doing this. Not for the money, not for the exposure in an industry. It's being witness to, creative magic.
And Michael Kelly was probably my favorite person from House of Cards.
Oh, God bless that man. That man, I could text him right now this morning and he'll respond to me.
He's Jesse, like I said, bro. If you ever get a chance to break down House of Cards, man, the first 3-4 seasons have a core that will you will binge it. You can binge it.
Yeah.
All the way through those first 4 seasons. Michael Kelly was phenomenal, man.
I got to give props to Christina Kilpie, who I'm working with now, who I've worked with for 30 years. She's the other prop master who I've been through this business along with Mike Sabo, and she was the prop master for House of Cards. Oh God. So I worked like a few days season 1, and I was like, I don't know about this show. And then I had to quit the business. I quit movie business for what I thought for good after a movie called Game Change that I did with Ed Harris and Juliana Moore, and because it was a brutal show and it just killed me. And I was just like, I'm done. My mom was going through hospice at the time, home hospice. Listen. And so I was like, I need to get a real job. I need a Monday through Friday. I got to be there for her, So I quit. And Christina was just like, I need you for the show. I said, I can't do it. I just can't do it. And then season 2 came around. She was like, look, can you maybe be prop master for second unit? I said, all right, I'll do that. And then my mom passed before season 3, and I went in, full time on that show.
Wow.
It was an experience. It's definitely an experience that I'm not going to get a show like that again. I don't think that's ever going to come through our area.
In what way? What do you mean specifically? A show like that? What do you mean?
A show with that kind of budget, a show with that kind of bravado. I mean, I remember watching when I finally decided to work for for her for season 3. I said, all right, I need to sit down and watch the show because I never watched the show. I may have had Netflix. I don't remember. But so I sat down. I got Netflix just so I could watch the show. So I had to learn the show, learn the characters, learn the story. And I'll never forget the first episode. The very first scene is Kevin Spacey on the street
with the dog.
The dog gets hit, and he kills that dog. And I was like, "Fuck! I can't. I'm not doing this. I can't deal with that. You know what I mean? That turned me off so much."
An animal get hurt. It's like, ugh, yeah.
And you know what?
I'd rather a person get hit by a car. But, I mean, and shows change your lives, and House of Cards changed my life. And we won't get a show like that unless the government of Maryland understands the incentives of what we need for this state to get business back. I mean, we haven't had regular business. The show I'm on now is the first time I've been on a show for more than a couple of weeks.
Wow.
And it's been 3 years. Lioness was the last thing I worked on. That was a full-time show. And until, the state, some people in the state, understand that this is people's livelihood. This is our jobs, stop thinking about Netflix as a $29 billion company and why they should get incentives while you're still giving incentives to, Exxon and all these other companies. There's no difference there. Incentives you're giving them, and they make billions of dollars in profits. Atlanta, when they started shooting down there, they brought in $9 billion of revenue in the first couple of years, because they gave them the incentives. They built the sound stages. Maryland could do that. We have DC, we have Baltimore, we have a lot of, we've been making movies here for decades, since Avalon, so. Hopefully,
it also helps creative people too that want to be in, like young people that are like, I want to get into the industry, but they don't live in LA or New York City. It's like,
Yeah. And I never went to film school. I came from, my beginnings was, I was a kid in middle school and ran a spotlight during our show, South Pacific, which is one of my favorite shows, by the way. I love About Guy. It's one of my favorite soundtracks. And, I started out as a stagehand at Hammerjacks, which is a nightclub on the Eastern Shore in Baltimore, one of the biggest rock and roll nightclubs. And that got me into the IATSE Local 19 union. And from there, I met Mike Sabo, who was also in Local 19, which is a theatrical local, Broadway, concerts, that kind of stuff, Meriwether. And so I got connected with these guys that were doing movies in Local 19, and that's how I got into Local 487, So I've been a union guy for over 30 years, and which, is the only way to work in my opinion. Union provides, union takes care of, union as a family, and that's how I got my start. Because guys took me under their wing, because I was like, oh, I want to do that. Is that what you do? You work on homicide? Oh, cool. And they're like, all right, well, I got this on-set dresser position on the corner. You want to give it a shot? I'm like, yeah. And it was like, in the city, in the ghetto, and I was like, oh, I've got some experience. I know what to do here. You know, and then I blossomed through that process. And yeah.
Wow.
You need people to like give you an opportunity. I mean, I feel like that's how every career gets started, right? Is that somebody, you know, somebody that works on the show will be like, hey, you know.
The people you meet too, like, I mean, Jim McPherson was the assistant prop master for season 1 and 2 of The Wire. And, you know, I learned so much from him. You know, that show tended not to be for him. And that's how I made my move. Jeffrey Pratt Gordon, who I worked with on The Corner, who was props, who worked with Mike Sabo on Homicide with Brooke Eaton. You know, Mike was the dresser, Brooke Eaton was a prop master of that show, and Jeffrey was assistant, and Lester also. And you know, those guys taught me a lot in the very early days. You know, Brooke Eaton is one of my closest friends in the business, and he's a president of the local in New Orleans. And you know, it's the same. It's almost like recovery. You know what I mean? These guys take you under their wing, and they show you the ropes, and they put you out there. You know, and they always got their eye on you to make sure you're okay and make sure you're doing it right. You know, because you know you're backing up their reputation. You know, if I get on a job and I'm doing stuff that looks stupid in Hollywood, you know, I'm going to hear it from Christina Kilpie. I'm going to hear it from Mike Sabo. I'm going to hear it from my network of prop people and movie people. Hey, what are you doing with that show? That's dumb. That dumb. Why'd you let that stuff fly? You know, and I'll have my reasons. Like, you know, director's this way, and I just couldn't convince him. You know, but it's a family. It's a family. No matter what show you work on, when you're with people that much and that long, you know, for 6, 8 months, 40, 50, 60 hours a week,
yeah,
you can only become a family.
Right.
Bob, I know you got to get going soon, so I just want to. Well, number one, you know, because there's a lot more I wanted to ask you too, with just stuff that you mentioned, like advertisement and stuff, and sponsorship and stuff. But would you be open to coming for a part 2 sometime?
Absolutely.
Soon? Okay.
Yeah.
And then with that, I just want my final question to be, because you know you kind of told a pretty funny story on the email. If you have time to tell us,
yeah,
with the blackjack and the Port Authority police running. Do you want to run us down that whole story?
Yeah. This is a good time to wrap up because it is kind of drizzling out here a little bit, but it's not bad. So in season 2, we had this scene where these guys jump out of a car and they snatch a guy and they beat him up. It's the Greeks grabbing somebody. I think
the guy, the ship foreman.
Yeah, the foreman. And so in the scene, the guys, the henchmen have a blackjack to subdue him, to bring him into the car, knock him out. And a blackjack is like a leather paddle, right? And it's got a metal rod through the center of it. And you use it to subdue somebody. You smack them in the back of the neck or the back of the head, and you drop them right there. So for the stunt, we had to come up with a double that, you know, would not hurt anybody. And so we made it out of neoprene. And but I had to get real ones through my alternative sources. God love people. And so I got a small one and a big one. And we did the scene, and after the scene was wrapped, I made sure that those props that I had gotten for myself, because I'm trying to build a kit too, you know, while I'm working out a Mike's kit, I was like, all right, I'm going to keep these with me and keep them in my bag and not going to get into the truck. Once it's in the truck, it's gone. It's part of Mike's kit. You know what I mean? And I understand the rules. And so I kept them on me. So the big one I had in the bottom of my work bag, which is my knapsack that I would carry around with me, whether I was working, traveling, whatever. And I had this trip 6 months later going to San Diego for the 50th anniversary of Narcotics Anonymous in San Diego. And I was going with my first wife, who's also, well, I'm not going to say my wife and my 6-month-old son. My daughter is going to stay with grandparents. So we have a flight at 6 something in the morning at BWI. Night before, I go through my bag because after work, I always try to go through my bag to make sure I don't have anything like crack vials, drug paraphernalia, knives, fake guns, you know, anything, you know, because I could get pulled over and they could search me. So I'm going through my bag to make sure I don't have any of that stuff when I go through TSA. And I go through it and everything. And I look at the bottom of my bag, and at the bottom of my bag is a wire script. And I said, all right, well, you know, I'm gonna need that. I need to review because I'm taking time off from the show to go to this trip, and I can review the script for that episode, season 2. And I put my NA text in there, and I put my camera in there, and I go through all the pockets, and everything's, you know, seems copacetic. So we get to the TSA at BWI, and my wife goes through, and she's goes through the stroller and everything like that. And she's already through, and she's on the other side waiting for me. And I'm going through, and this is 2003. So, you're taking your belt off, your shoes off. I mean, it's really stripped down search and everything like that. And they put my backpack through the x-ray machine, and I'm on the other side, and I'm just sitting there waiting for it to come through. And it comes through, and the kid, who it was like a young kid, like 18, 19 years old, is doing the scanner part. And he comes back around and grabs my backpack and puts it through again. And they're all like looking, him and another guy, like looking at the screen. They got their heads tilted. It's like, it's like a Scooby-Doo. It's like, and it comes through, and they grab it a third time and put it through the scanner again. And then he walks over to me after it goes through, and he goes, I don't know how to ask you this question, but do you have a turkey baster in your bag? And I said, no, and in the back of my mind, I start thinking about what's going on with what's in my bag. The only thing I would think looks like a turkey baster on x-ray is one of those big giant syringes that we use for blood gags, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I would have known if that was in my bag. And he goes, well, I think I have to search your bag. And I was like, yeah, sure, go ahead, man. Do whatever you got to do. And he starts pulling out my camera, and he pulls out my NA text. I'm like, yeah, I'm making small talk. I'm going to this convention in San Diego, blah, blah, blah. Pulls out my wire script, it's, oh, you work on the wire? Yeah, I work on the wire. I do props. And so I'm going to go through the script. He pulls out the blackjack.
Wow.
And my heart sank. And I was just like, I didn't say anything. I was like, fuck, because I knew I wasn't supposed to have that at the airport. And he looks at me with this blackjack, and he goes, what's this? I said, oh, that's a blackjack. He goes, okay, I think I'm going to have to keep this. I said, sure, no problem. So I grab my camera, my books, my script. I'm start shoving this stuff all back in my backpack. And he goes, but I need to show this to my supervisor. And I look over, and it's this older guy, and he's got like a walkie-talkie in one hand, a cell phone in another hand. He's like, watching everything that's going through. Kid walks over with this blackjack in his hand, and the guy looks at that, and he looks at me, and his eyes pop out. He goes right on the walkie, and in like 2 minutes, there's like 5 or 6 Port Authority cops there. And I'm sitting on the ground trying to put stuff back in my backpack, and they're surrounding me. And they're just reading me the riot act. They're like, you can't bring this to the airport. This is a weapon. Don't you know you can't bring this? Is 9/11. This is crazy. Why did you bring this to the airport? This is an offense. And I'm just like, look,
I just do props.
I just do props. And I lifted my back, but they weren't giving me any break. And the one cop who was the only one who was kind of like cool about it, he was like, all right, look, we're going to have to take you downstairs to the barracks, and we're going to have to write up a criminal citation, and then you'll be on your way. What time's your flight? And I said, oh, it's like 6:15, 6:30. Meanwhile, my wife and kid are over here. My wife's like, what the hell is going on with you? And one guy said, oh, yeah, you're going to have to book another flight. You're going to miss that. And the officer, whose name was Officer Wire, by the way.
Oh, shit.
I know, right? Isn't that
That's
weird?
crazy.
That's ironic as shit.
No coincidences.
Yeah, and he goes, nah, you'll be fine. We'll get you back up here in time for your flight. Don't worry about it. And sure enough, I get down to the barracks, and I'm sitting there, at a table, and they're writing everything up. And this one guy who's been hammering me the whole time, he's like, I don't like that show. And this is season 2 with Port Authority, is one of our main characters. God, I can't remember the actress's name. She was awesome too. And he's just hammering me. He's like, I don't like this. You didn't pick us like we're fools. We look like dummies on that show. And so I had to make up, because I wasn't right. I had to make up an ending for that whole episode, for the whole season, to make the Port Authority cops look like the heroes to this guy to get off my back. And
sure, like B.D. Russell, huh?
Yeah, I got a criminal citation with, and Homeland Security, and I just did all the paperwork, pay the fines, and that was wiped off my record. So I haven't had a problem since at the airport, so it's all
That's
cool.
Awesome.
But
that's a volatile time too. Less than 2 years removed from 9/11.
Yeah.
I was in high school, but so I wasn't in the airport. But
they were jacked.
Yeah,
they were jacked up.
I understand the airports.
They were paranoid. Yeah.
Yeah.
They got to do that. That's their job.
Yeah.
Bob, thank you so much for coming on, man. I hope maybe we could do a part 2 in December, man, because I know I don't know about the guys, but I know I got a bunch more.
No, for sure. No, I got a bunch. This was a phenomenal interview. It really was.
Count on it.
Thank you so much.
And
if you have anything that we can help you with, whether it's your services, what you offer, what you're looking for, anything like that, you can send it to Jesse, and we'll plug it in our interview description so that people can reach you or hire you or whatever whatever it is, anything like that. That if you have
anybody in your circles, anybody in your networks is looking to get into the film work or looking to get into props, absolutely give them my contact information. I'll talk to them. I'll talk to them on the phone. Jesse, same thing goes for recovery. Anybody, you want to send my way, in this area or working in the business who's struggling or whatever, it's just another person in my network to help me stay sober today. Just like you're here, you're keeping me sober today. You know what I mean? That's how it works. So yeah.
And commending both of you all. Just not to cut you off. I commend both of you all for your recovery. Like the recovery aspect of it, that you all seem to take it so serious. Like absolutely. I know, Jesse, how serious you take it, and Bob, it seems like 28 years in, you take it very serious. I just commend you both for continuing with your sobriety for sure.
I just want to say, Bob, you want to take us out with the Serenity Prayer or the Lord's Prayer?
I will do the Serenity Prayer, even though the Lord's Prayer is I'm Irish Catholic. I grew up in the Catholic religion, so Lord's Prayer is cool. But let's do the Serenity Prayer because that spreads out to everybody.
Yep, let's go.
All right. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Thy will be done, not mine.
Thank you.
All right, guys.
Man,
this is an amazing episode, man.
Yeah, Bob, thank you so much. Blessings to you. Good luck. Sir. And before I let you go, we have all our interviews. If you wouldn't mind, would you please just say, please like, share, subscribe, and comment to Wiretapped Truths? Could you say that for us?
Yeah, please like, share, and comment to Wiretapping Truth podcast.
Thank you so much.
Best podcast ever.
Thank you so much. We appreciate it. We appreciate your time. Again, please like, share, subscribe, comment, Wiretapped Truths, another phenomenal interview. And we will see you all next week for season 2, episode 6 recap. Thank you so much.
Cool. Take care, guys.
All righty. Bye.
Bye.